everybody, and welcome back. It is me, Cyber Warrior, and it is Security Happy Hour. So, as you all know, I do this every week. So, some weeks I'm live, usually the first week, well, once a month at least, I'm live, which was last week. This week, I'm not live, as you can tell, because nobody's on the YouTube channel, but that's okay. I have today Brett Broadhurst and Brian Thompson, two fantastic people that I've met through whether Discord, LinkedIn, mutual connections, but you know, I always aim, and everybody should know, I aim to get people out there to allow them to express themselves, to explain cybersecurity or what's on their mind, and just where they came from, so that everybody can have an inspiration somewhere. All right, because we all got to make it in this field. We have to be a community. So without further ado, why don't we start with, to my, I did it that time, left, and go with Brett Broadhurst. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, brother, and let people know, like, kind of where you came from and what you're doing now.
All right, so I'm very happy to be here, and I would not be here if I didn't have some good friends such as Ankit Tyagi and Robbie.
Robbie was on the first episode, man. He was one of my very first guests.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. We're very good friends. Well, as you know, you've been in the Discord server. Me and Ankit, we are creating an education platform to teach programming to cover the ABCs of technology, artificial intelligence, blockchain, and cybersecurity. And we're teaching it in a way that, in a story-driven manner. And you are a spy. Everyone on the platform is a spy. You do it as spy missions. It's not the trivial gamification that you get in stuff like other sites, like code.org, or to some extent Code Academy. The whole it was inspired by games like Deus Ex and Metal Gear Solid, so we're setting the bar very high. I've been actually programming for 8 years now. Like, I got started in back in 2010, when all you had to do to impress people on exact chat boards was some HTML and CSS. Then I started getting serious around 13, and here I am now, and studying for CCNA.
Nice. So
I was going to go network.
What got you into security? So talking to Ankit, you help a lot with the cybersecurity side of the programming side of things. So if you go for CCNA now, do you have that background already in cybersecurity and like secure coding, or did you kind of learn secure coding on your own, or how'd that work out for you?
I learned secure coding on my own. The reason taking CCNA, because I was always interested in software architecture. And now I see, okay, let's do network architecture, because I like being hands-on and building stuff.
Okay, that makes sense.
I was originally going to take Network Plus. However, I was advised to take CCNA based on my background already.
Right, which makes sense. So
yeah.
With that, yeah, man, I love what Crevolut's doing. I love their really what they're going for. Again, I sit in your Discord server, help out where I can. For the most part, like I said, Robbie's the one that brought me over. Me and him, he was on my very first episode of Security Happy Hour, him and Austin Coates. And, I've been working with them guys since Security Blue Team. So it's been a year and a half now that I've been dealing with them too. And we've connected and done a lot of good together. So it's always good to see them getting more involved, because, as a community, that's what we need to do. Be involved and help each other out and help each other grow. Yeah. So seeing that and knowing that he's been helping you and working with you and talking to you, that's honestly huge for me, because I personally try to only involve myself with other people that are willing to basically pay it forward. So if I help you, I want you to help somebody else. I'm not asking for money. I'm asking for you to continue helping others in the field, because that's how we grow and that's how we learn. So that's huge. Now with Crevolut, when are you guys actually launching training for the public?
We have a server announcement for that. We plan on having a closed alpha test on 15th to 18th, somewhere in there, and we will be presenting a product demo on the 20th to a university. So that's what we have in mind for that.
Nice. All right.
Also,
So
yeah, as you were saying earlier, community is very important, especially with such a chaotic domain as cybersecurity.
very much so. So this is what I want to do, Brett. I'd love for, if you allow it, give me a non-expiring Discord link to share to put into the description of this video, so that, and I didn't think about it last time, but running my own Discord server now, I kind of thought about it. Let's put that in the chat below, in the description below. That way, anybody who wants to get involved with Crevolut for training and just meet the other people that are trying to learn and things like that, they can actually jump on the server and become involved.
All right, sure, that's fine.
Awesome.
I'll have it to you at the end of the call.
Awesome. Yeah, just send it to me as soon as we get done with the call. Just send it to me. Moving on, Brian, man. I linked up with you on LinkedIn, funnily enough, through actually John and I know him as his Twitter handle, and I can't think of his real name. He's gonna kill me. The gentleman that was on live last week.
Andy.
Yes, John and Andy. Andy, I'm sorry, don't kill me. I love you, brother.
Killer Grizzly, I think. I don't have as cool name as Killer Grizzly, unfortunately.
Yep. So I met you through there. You seem to be doing a lot of the same things they're doing with like Intel work and things like that. So what got you into, do you have more, how do I want to put it, more experience outside of threat intel, or is the primary focus of everything you've done been in the Intel community?
That's a good question. And I gotta say, I did prep my background so I could be familiar with my own origin story, and I didn't forget anything. But as far as Intel, I guess I've done a decent amount on the cyber intel side, more than non-cyber intel. Just making that transition, like when I was a long time ago, I was enlisted. Well, I'm still enlisted. I got into doing a couple of jobs in the Air Force, finance, which I didn't like at all. And I said, let's do something else. Something has a big bonus. That's also nice. And I went into Intel operations analyst, just traditional stuff, supporting the Air Force. And I started getting interested in cyber. And I was like, what is this cyber intel stuff? What is this hacking and all this crazy stuff? The classified reporting, the unclassified reporting. And it's like, this is good. This is good. So I left active duty and I decided to go back to school. My original degree was in information science, which is, I like to refer to as IT light. It gave me just enough to be a little dangerous in IT, of which I didn't actually get any jobs in, because at that time I did not learn about the importance of internships that I know now. So I was like, well, what am I going to do? Well, I'll enlist in the Air Force and then maybe something good will happen. And it did. So I got involved in the Intel community, had a couple different assignments, working with the Army, working with ISR, Intel surveillance and reconnaissance. And so making that parlay, from Intel to cyber, is a little difficult. A lot of lexicon that I wasn't aware of. I was only at a high level. But I've actually gotten a little bit bored of cyber intel last couple of years, because I was basically tired of researching and assembling all this information and then giving it to people, and they would get to do all the fun stuff. They would work on the networking side, they would do on the operator side. And so I was like, no, I want to do that. So I've left cyber intel behind. I'm an insider threat analyst right now with a federal SOC. And in my guard life, my part-time military life, part of a cyber operations team. So they do defensive missions and they do hunt operations. So I was doing cyber intel for them, and now I will be doing network admin, network administration, doing maintenance for the whole weapon system for the operators, and whatever else technical needs doing. So I'm starting to balance the scales of doing less intel and more cybersecurity, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome, because it's funny. I came up kind of similar. Well, no, not really. I didn't do any intel work. I was all IT. So for me, I got started in IT and then got into security when I started breaking into my own wireless networks. So back when I think it was Backtrack 1. I don't even think Backtrack 2 was out yet. I can't remember. It was either 1 or 2. And I legitimately sat there in my apartment and started breaking into my own wireless network and was like, oh, that's cool. And then I was like, from there, I was doing some research and was like, hey, you can actually pull SSL out of, if you're a man in the middle, strip the SSL away and pull clear text credentials. And I was like, no way. Now, this was before browsers did certificate checks. So it was before, it was when it was easy. So I was like, all right. So I set that up and kid you not, no warning, no nothing, just Wireshark showed me my credentials. Or I think I was using DSniff. I think it was. I forget what it was. I was using one of them that basically showed me my credentials, and then I was on the website, and I was like, "That's interesting." So like it got me more and more into security that way, and I fell in love with it. I fell in love with Linux, Backtrack and all that stuff before rolling. So, and that was how I got my start in security. So it's kind of interesting because you came Intel into security, and now as I retired from the Army, I know operators and I know what they do and I know how they function. So it's interesting to see you go from the Intel side of things and be like, this is boring, and get into the hands-on technical operator side of things, whereas I'm kind of the opposite side of the spectrum, where I love doing research, I love helping people, I love doing all that stuff, and I've been doing technical for so long that part of me, not all of me, but part of me, would think that it might be fun for a little while to actually be able to do some just research all day and be able to look for the bad guys and, you know what I mean? Like, see what's going on for at least, 6 months. I mean, let's be honest, you can't really do it for too long before you're just like, man, I'm tired of this. Let me get my hands on the keyboard again.
and that's exactly where I am at. And it's funny you mentioned you've done the other side and you would like to come over to the Intel side. One thing I want to mention is when I made that transition over, both in civilian life and my guard military time, I realized that traditional Intel operations, there's a lot of corollaries to cyber operations. Being with two different cyber units, who do mobilizations and go on defensive missions, the planning stages of a mission, the goals, the objectives, it's all very similar. Once the Intel analyst knows the lexicon, okay, this is what IOCs are important. This is why cyber or the server and the network topology is important. This, that, and the other at a high level. I don't expect an Intel analyst always to know deep down how does OSPF work in a Cisco network or whatever. But once they get that down, they can support the operators, that the guys that and that you did, just as well as they can a pilot going on a bombing run or something like that. There's a lot of corollaries once you get past the huge hurdle of the match up the words.
Right. And that's really comes down to is just verbiage. I mean, one is primarily research, but when you understand, and that's the same thing. And Brett, I'm wondering if this will help in the long run with kind of how you guys do your programming training and things like that, and as you try to ingrain cybersecurity into it. The one thing I've always said is to know how to do one job, you have to know how to do the other. So to know how to be a red teamer, you got to know how to be a blue teamer. And the reason for that is you don't have to know the very down and dirty nitty gritty, but you should understand and have an understanding of, all right, so if I'm a red teamer and I want to break into somewhere, what are they going to be looking at to find me? And if I'm a blue teamer, I should know how a red teamer will do things, like how they think. Okay, what will they be doing so that I know what to look for? So I think being able to do both sides of the fence, whether we're developing codes and scripts and things like that to do one side or the other, or even in the Intel field, you've got to be able to you've got to be able to sit in the other person's shoes so that you know what's going on. And I think that's something that is missing, because all these roles look for offensive. I think for the blue team, it's a little bit better because they still technically look for a lot of offensive training. For the most part, I see a lot of offensive training for blue team roles. But for red team roles and pen testing and things like that, I don't see very much ask for the blue team side of things. And again, I get it. There's this whole purple team concept people are coming up with, but I just think as someone who you want to be able to articulate as a pen tester, okay, what should you be seeing when you write a report? You need to know how to remediate what you're doing, and not just by researching it online. You should know every step of the way. Okay, if I do this, so if I'm going to exploit SMB, it's going to show up in this log, this and log, and this log, because I've done it and I know what, where along the chain it's exploiting, or taking advantage of something. Then you should know to say that to your clients as a pen tester. Now, as a red teamer, you're trying to be quiet. So, of course, as a true blue red teamer, somebody who's meant to be quiet, you should know how to hide. Well, to know how to hide, you have to know where they're looking, so that you know how to direct their, the flow of what they're looking at, so that you can slide through the cracks. So it's very interesting because I see a lot of correlation between intel and SOC work for sure. Like your blue I think intel and blue team more so go hand in hand. Without a proper intel team, you're not going to have a proper blue team.
But I definitely would say that there's room, and maybe it's not always recognized by red teamers, for an intel analyst, because you take a analyst that is familiar with cyber and they work on a red team, and you say, oh, well, they don't know anything about offensive tools or various tradecraft of APT actors or whatever. And that's not necessarily always the most important, because, granted, I've never done red teaming. I know people who have been pen testers and so on and so forth, and, make their own tools. But it really just comes down to red teaming needs to understand, like they could say, hey, my recon, I need this and I need that and all this other stuff. It's just like intel requirements. Like a commander says, hey, we're going to take this hill, but here's some of the questions I need answered before I take this hill. Intel, go. The same thing a red teamer can ask the same stuff. And the intel analyst doesn't need to know all the specific stuff, but I can find this stuff.
Right, and I think that's the thing is an intel analyst, somebody that's good at intel knows how to compile data and knows how to look. So if they have an understanding of what to look for, you can give an intel analyst the data and say, hey, this is my enumeration, like this is my scans, my whatever, what's available to me, because it's a lot of data and I don't know where to start. So like some of your junior pen testers really can rely on a lot of your intel guys. It's like, can you help me correlate this data into something useful so that I can develop an attack pattern and things like that. So
it's pivoting off what is given, basically.
Exactly. All right, so going with that, Brett and Brian, I gotta ask, do you have kids? Either of you?
Yes.
Do I look like I have kids?
No, you don't. You're a little young. You're a little young. All right, I'll give that to you. No, I say this because I just did a cyber awareness video today. So I was putting it out as you guys were coming online. And this is where my intel comes down to, and why I'm kind of correlating it to it, is because us as adults, right? I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but our privacy's gone. It's been gone. We came up with social media, right? We came up with Facebook and MySpace and God knows what else has been around that we've just given all of our information to. I mean, when Facebook and MySpace first came out, we were putting everything out there, and there were no privacy controls. There was no, Google can't, scrape this site. It was just, it's there. And everybody, anybody who's been around for long enough knows that once it's on the internet, it's there forever. Even if you have someone delete it, somebody else probably has a copy of it. I mean, come on, let's be honest. That's really how it works. So with kids, and the reason I bring this up is because when you look at intelligence and how people gather data, we have been giving our kids so many things, whether it be phones, tablets, and then the applications that go along with it that track your data and where you're at. So your Snapchats, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, everything. Smart toys, watches, all this stuff captures all our data. So from an Intel perspective, and even from your perspective in security on how we look at it, is there something that we can do in the security field to get across to some of this younger generation at the dangers of all this technology and really what it means? Because like I said, me personally, I was in the Army. My data's out there. I mean, come on now.
I just got it.
It's too late for me.
Yeah.
But how do we get it across to the kids that like you've got to be smarter about what you do? You've got to use things like VPNs and fake names and fake addresses, not to be fake, not to like do anything like catfish, but because if you don't, then now all of your information somebody else has sold and given to somebody else, or somebody's acquiring all this data to use against you at a later point in time.
I think
go ahead.
a huge problem with
you go first. I'm still working on my thoughts.
All right. I think a huge part of it is that a lot of people in my generation, when social media was starting to become popular, we made accounts and we didn't have our parents' advisory. Like we put a lot of information that we didn't tell our parents about, and we didn't know what to do, so we had no advisory. And now, basically, if we're searching for that dopamine of putting out everything in our lives so that we can find peer approval. And that's why I think like stuff like TikTok has destroyed Gen Z.
Yeah.
However, I don't think that it can't be turned around. Like just 30 years ago, people my age didn't know how to use a computer. And now everyone is fluent in using a computer, using web browser, installing software. I think it would take more time in order to adopt more security practices. However, it's going to need to stem from awareness of how it can benefit them, because Gen Z selfishness. They need to see how it benefits them.
Right, and I think that's been a lot of things. I think I've seen a lot of talk about social networking and things like that. I think I'm away from the Intel side of things now, and I'm sorry. I was trying to correlate it, but I think I'm gone now unless Brian can find a way to bring it back for me.
I will try to bring it back.
But I think from a social networking perspective, they talk about how now, especially with like the coronavirus and things like that, there's a lot more suicides, a lot more depression and things like that, because we're looking for that immediate gratification. And we're looking for that, like you said, that dopamine rush. I mean, look at how many people have taken to TikTok to make videos of them dancing, of them doing whatever.
Everyone, man.
And just to get the likes and just to get the followers. And it's like, I think it started before the coronavirus for sure, right? We've all seen the videos. We've all seen things that started before even the coronavirus. But I think it got worse because now that you can't, especially when it initially started and there was all the lockdowns and everything, you couldn't get that social interaction. You couldn't get that approval from your friends or, from the stranger in school or whatever the case may be. Whatever that high you were looking for, you couldn't get it. But now, if you don't get 1,000 likes in your first hour, oh my God, it's the end of the world. Like, I can see how that's playing now on the human mentality, especially for some of the younger generation of, well, I'm only beautiful if I get 1,000 likes, or I'm only popular if I get 10,000 likes, or whatever the case may be. But can we, and this is going to be my chance to try to bring it back, Brian, to Intel, is can we, when you look at these accounts that are truly following people, you can't trust who's following who and that it's a valid person. So beyond the valid person, if you look at things like, even look at your nation states, look at all this other stuff and the fake accounts that are out there to do things, they follow people to gather intel. Where are they? What do they do? What do they eat? Where do they work? What information are they putting online? And we got our kids that just do it for the sake of, oh, it's fun, it's popular, it's going to make me cool, or whatever the case may be. Where do we go? What do we do? Because all of this data is just gone now.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. You both are right. And I think, with Brett, you said to focus on telling the millennial generation, Generation Z, all the other letters afterwards, what it's in it for them, and to be safer and smarter about it. I've actually taken a different path, the flip side of it, with the parents. So in my hometown uh, in Virginia, there's a local library was giving a cybersecurity series. So
Okay.
first it was for seniors, to be fine. It was for parents. So myself and a friend of mine that I used to work with at US CERT, and we got together. We both have young kids. He's got a teenager and some youngins, and I got 5 and 7 year olds. So they're using devices. They're online, but we very restrict their movements. But it occurred to me after giving the talk and prepping it and stuff that yes, there's a lot of tools for parental guarding and stuff, and to monitoring. That gets into a whole sticky area, privacy just from the parent and the child aspect. But I found that the parents asked really good questions, and a lot of them weren't very savvy on basic security and privacy topics themselves. Even though we all get it in work, we have to do our cybersecurity training once a year. If you work for the federal government, maybe other private industries have it as well. We just click through and we say, boom, we're done. But approaching it from both sides, from informing the kids, hey, this is what you're putting out there, and think twice. But also hitting up the parents too and saying, look, these are the dangers that are out there. I kind of treated it as a threat brief of sorts,
Right.
that I would number of airmen or operators and saying, this is how they're getting out there, your kids, but this is everything that's seen, and my used a picture of Facebook, and it was him at a barbecue joint in Philadelphia, and we had 2 images. We had one image with the full thing. We said to the audience, what do you think is sharing here? Because so many of us, that have kids or don't have kids, the younger generations, they just put it out there, but they don't really are cognizant from an intel mindset of what exactly can I get from this right here,
Right.
And then we put up a second slide and it said, well, I can say that, he's out at a barbecue joint. This was 5 minutes ago. So it means he's not home. I could go rob his house if I wanted to, or I could try to track him down and stalk him. He likes this. This is his friends are. This is his taste, So there's a lot of intel that you could collect from one social media tagged post. You have some raw intel, and then you pivot off that to various tools, open and closed. You could get a lot of what we would call pattern of life analysis, is what is used in traditional intel. It's basically, most people use that. They think of it as, UAV hovering over somebody in Southwest or Southeast Asia and watching them for a couple days to see where they go to work, see where they go to shopping. When do they get home? How do they go have their meetings? They go have a beer or a chai with somebody, So bringing it back to the intel, there's huge amounts of data for an analyst to go. If a red team wants to target a company, all this say, hey, this is the company X. You're intel analyst on my red team. Tell me everything you can find about it. And there's huge amounts of information. If you know where to look, or how to leverage what you got, there's a lot of open source intelligence out there.
So if we look at
I'm
the
trying to bring it back to
the adults, and like I said, our information's already there, but our patterns may have changed. So as we've gotten wiser and smarter and been like, all right, we're not going to share as much. I'm not saying that's everybody, but let's just say for the sake of argument that it is, right? And we're like, all right, we're going to lock down our profiles. We're going to do this so that I have to know you to share my data. But you've left all your other posts and all the other stuff public. So of course they're going to try to go off of that first. But back to the kids, if they're not at that level, if we have not taught them, we've not been in the schools, we've not been, parents to them. And that's how I relate it.
Yeah.
I'm a parent, which means as a parent, I need to talk to them like, don't share this, don't do that, take them through everything and the why. And beyond just the exploitation side of it, but the intel side and, what it can mean for us. Now, when I was in the Army, if I deployed, if I went somewhere, I told my wife, I told my kids, do not ever say I'm gone. Do not ever say when I'm coming home. Do not ever say any of the things like this because I'm in the military. And so
OPSEC,
things like that
yeah.
can keep you gone longer, or bring you home sooner or whatever. But at the end of the day, it came down to intel and what can be gathered by profiles.
Yeah.
So
I
I would venture, and Brett, just to bring this over to you and what Crevolute's doing, I would venture to say adding some type of scraping coding into the application, into the programming methodology, because that's how that's how a lot of your open source tools work, is scraping Google, scraping LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever, whether it's through an API, which 90% of them are free. Some of them you have to pay for, but a good vast majority of them, you can scrape a ton of data for free. Being able to do things like that and develop those help not only develop the coding aspect of it, but the intelligence and OSINT aspect of what we look at in both sides of it. Because even as a blue teamer, we want to be able to tell, our companies or our clients, whether it's for one company or you work for an MSSP and work for multiple clients, hey, this is what information's out there about you. I found it running one tool. Like, everybody who's ever worked for your company and all their email addresses, I have it all right here.
Yeah.
So being able to do those things.
Yeah. I think
You start to realize that no one's safe. Like, I read an article that Apple, like their entire network from the entire
months, right?
17 dot, it was all it was they owned it for 3 months, and that's Apple. Like, they have so much money into cybersecurity. I don't think
Twitter.
people see how serious it is. Like, with shows like Mr. Robot, games like Watch Dogs, even Stranger Danger in the 90s, and it seems to me that people see security as like an inconvenience, because it feels like doing your homework, right? That stuff that you have to keep at it, and you have to keep at it for consistent long-term gains. And as you said in the army, that you never tell someone when you leave the house that OPSEC, like no one in my generation even considers OPSEC, because it's like, it's not that it's not relevant, it's that they don't see what value it gives to them. Like, even beyond OSINT, there are sites for private detectives that you can get information on anyone. Like, as mentioned in, I think, Ghost in the Wires, Kevin Mitnick, and also The Art of Invisibility. Like, if you exist, there's information on you, so you should try as the best you can to protect that information, or else something really bad can happen. Like, even stuff in sexploitation and like revenge sites.
Yep.
Like, it happens.
Yep.
And if people would have been much more cautious, like even a little bit more cautious, if awareness can be raised, since it is, Cybersecurity Awareness Month, instead of people watching Mr. Robot to see, oh yeah, I want to be a hacker or stuff, they see, okay, I'm seeing what this guy is doing to people, how can I protect myself?
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Maybe another way to approach your endeavors, Brett, would be to have somebody use Python to, after, let's say, a huge data set is scraped, have you use Python to say, make some sense, and then say, okay, great, this person, these emails went out, these websites were addressed, the phone location data, maybe it's a mobile phone and it has all that stuff, emails, its geolocation, and they have Python to parse this data into something usable and say, what is this person giving away? To kind of hit home, oh, these are the stuff that my mobile phone is just shouting to the heavens, rising everybody.
There's a lot you can find at EXIF
yeah,
data.
Exactly, EXIF data. I mean, that's something that most people not in our business probably wouldn't even think, oh, let me on my phone. Okay, yeah. I mean, I turn it off on my phone so that stuff isn't in my photos. But the young audience looking at that and say, oh, here's all the stuff that is out there. And then ask the questions, what can you do to minimize it? And
I think that starts with us, though, Brian. I do. I think that starts with us, and talking to the younger generations and showing them, or at least explaining to them why, because how else are they going to learn? Now, granted, my son is a freaking genius sometimes when it comes to things he wants to do. So like, gaming, Reddit, Discord, all the cool stuff that kids love, is cool. It's a cool thing to do. He's a genius on it, and he's the one that's been like, dude, on freaking Discord, you can get a bot, and as you talk more, you get leveled up and can get different roles and this and the other. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, I use it to talk to people. I don't know anything about this. But, when you see things like that, it's like talking to them and explaining, like, all right, I'm going to go into your phone and I'm going to turn your GPS off. I'm going to tell it, hey, don't track me. I'm going to tell it, hey, don't do this, don't do that. And when they say why, being able to explain, well, because if you leave this info on there, then throughout your life, you're going to completely forget about it. And every single phone you get is going to track you from every application, which means not only are ads going to be generated based on what you're talking about or what you're searching, but now it's going to be based on where you're located. And that's just more and more data that people are accumulating on you. And I'm sorry, you should have to pay me for the data that you're selling. Like, if you're selling my data, I want my money. Where's my cut? Where are my royalties for all the data you've sold on me?
Well, that's the thing. You sold your rights away when you did the terms and conditions.
Yeah, exactly. When you signed, when you clicked OK. Go ahead.
Yeah, that user, the EULA that nobody reads, basically.
Yeah, because they make 1,000 pages, and only a lawyer has the patience to read that type of stuff.
Like, let's admit it. We've all been doing that for upwards of 20 years at this point. Terms and conditions will get on my face.
Exactly, and there's no, even privacy laws. There's no consistency. Federal level in the U.S. has certain set of criteria, but each state has their own different privacy rules of when you need to disclose if you have a breach. What is the amount of records that reaches a threshold that I need to tell the people about? There's a patchwork, and it does no good for the companies. They're trying to be good citizens and stewards about our data, and we have no recourse to correct bad information. Like you were saying, is we're not getting paid for it, and we can't go and correct it very easily.
And I think there's a difference.
It's very asymmetric.
I think there's a difference between a breach and it being sold. And that's where my problem comes in. So like,
those are two different topics for sure.
A breach is one thing, because we look at these companies that are trying to be very cognizant of everything that they're doing. And there are some out there that are making every effort to secure our data, but nothing is ever 100% secure. You can't protect it 100% of the time. It happens. If you're on somebody's radar, they're eventually going to get in. They're eventually going to find a way. Such is life. But then you got companies like Google, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, which is owned by Google now, LinkedIn, like all these other companies that just blatantly, you agree to the EULA. You're like, yeah, sure, I'll create an account. I'll do all this. And boom, gone. All your data. Everything you ever put on there is now sold to some ad company, some ad revenue, something. They're selling everything and making money off of you. And again, we agree to it. Let's be honest, we do. And I think that's a problem, because how you were talking about, there's no regulation, there's no standard. It's all like patchworked all the way through. I actually commented on a Twitter post recently about something similar, where I said, here's the problem. At the highest level, when you look at the White House and the whole national security, like cybersecurity complex that was put in place at the federal level, who I don't even know who the technically CISO or whatever they want to call the cybersecurity advisor to the president or whatever the case may be. Yeah. When you look at that level, nothing has been done for years to protect our data, to protect our privacy, to protect anything about us. It's all been about, let's concentrate on the breaches and put regulations in place. But then all you're doing is allowing companies to spend, I'll buy insurance, and the insurance will cover the ID protection for a year or two, and we're good to go. Yeah. Really, that's your fix. That's your plan. Just force people to buy ID protection or insurance. Yeah. What's that do for the people?
The reality of them. Yeah, go on.
I was just say, back in my grad school, I had a class professor. He covered privacy, he covered issues like this, and if there was a market where we could own our own data, which would be great, have some legislation at the federal level and say, you own everything about you. And if they want the information from you, Derek or Brett, then, need to contact you and reach out to you, and you can get some benefit of that. And it's locked down. That I don't see that happening in my lifetime, honestly.
No.
There's a little bit of hope with the European privacy laws that we have to adapt. The name escapes me at the moment, but
Those laws just say you can see what they collect and have them delete it, correct? That's what GDPR is. Basically, I can request all my data and tell you to delete it all, and it has to be deleted within so much time. But that's essentially what GDPR is.
Yeah, exactly. GDPR. Thank you. Unfortunately, as we already mentioned, we all believe that once it's out there, it's rattling around on a server somewhere. No matter how many times it's already been copied since memory. But getting back to, before I forget, talking to the kids and the younger generation, I think it needs to be approached from a certain risk management perspective. What I mean by that is, it's great that, we want to teach our kids that, hey, let's turn off this data for no geolocating, tracking, turn off this caches and so on and so forth, and be really cognizant. But at the same token is, if the flip side of that risk management is, one, how much are they really going to be a target? They're looking for the lowest hanging fruit, to use that often cliched phrase. Hackers use the lowest hanging fruit. They use phishing. Phishing works. It's easy. It's one of the biggest lures. No pun intended. But realizing, okay, maybe your son is not going to be targeted by an APT actor, or mine. At the same token, and we need to function in today's society. We need to have LinkedIn. We need to have a social media to engage with people, coworkers, friends, for business purposes. Maybe you have your own side hustle. You want to talk to the relatives. You want to play Discord. You have Xbox Live, what have you. So, yes, it's nice to be safe and secure and watch your privacy, but you need to balance that risk with, well, I also need to get by in the 21st century, So it's the conversation that says,
but
we know you got to do this.
But saying that and knowing that, Brian, I think that's where it's going to come down to. We need to start having, and legitimately start having, better control of our data and what is available. Because it is one thing if you put that information out there, right? Oh, I went to A, I went to B, I went to C, and you blatantly told everybody where you were in life and what you were doing. But it's a whole nother thing where they use your location, they use your ISP, they use all these different things and all these different methods to track you via cookies and all the other ways that you're tracked, and then say, okay, he was here at this time on this console with this IP address, and I'm going to log that and save that, and I'm going to sell it. And I think when you look at it from that aspect, that's where the difference comes in. There's a difference between you blatantly putting your information out there on social media, and then it being gone and you having no control over it. And that's where my problem comes in, because I get it. Now they have enacted a lot of privacy things to where you can say, okay, only friends can see this. Only friends can do that. Only friends can do this. And yeah, they may do something stupid, but even now Facebook, and as much as I hate Facebook, I still use it. If you share something and you said only your friends can see it, they can try to share it, but only your friends can still see your post. So it doesn't matter. They could share it all day unless they screenshot it, but now it no longer has your geolocation on it. It no longer has your information. It's now theirs. So I think they've made strides. I think I know they still sell our data. I know they still financially make money off of us. But as far as what's openly available is only as far as you're willing to let it be. The problem comes in where it's not so intuitive that you can go in there and make those changes. I've looked, I've tried, I've locked down a lot of things, but at the same time, I know that the common person that doesn't know security and doesn't know IT and doesn't know how to secure their data is not going to be able to get through that without somebody walking them through it.
Oh,
So, yeah.
I mean, I deleted my Facebook account months ago. I just got tired of it and other things, you know, and it was not intuitive in the slightest. You know, but really, as much as I would love for them to better protect, you know, what they're sharing, what they do with this. So Verizon sells all my data from my phone and all my activities. I mean, there's unfortunately, it's the reality is there's only limits that we can be informed about what's doing and who it's sharing with. We're definitely not be able to stop it unless it comes from a legislative aspect, or enough people get together and they publicly shame the company for sharing that, and then they're like, the corporate masters say, "Oh, okay, maybe we'll change things a little bit." You know, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of power as individuals in this equation.
Right, right. So, Brett, what do you think, man? Like, what are we?
People don't realize the reality that everyone wants your data, that companies want it because advertisement, malicious people want it, and back in 2010 it would go on Doxman, now it would go on Empire, something. Like, everything has a price tag. Like, where do you think the database dumps go? People sell them because, and they hack for money, either and for good or for bad. Either way, you're still working with data. Data is literally oil, gold, uranium. It's everything. It's what these companies have built the trillion-dollar empires on.
Yeah, new currency for sure.
So if all these people are going to be like claiming to be ANCOMs and say that corporations are evil, then why don't you hide your data?
But here's the thing, and you're right, and you know, malicious people that do it, and let's be honest. So we talked about how without certain policies, this, that, the other, and I'm the type of person that I want smaller government involvement. I'd prefer less regulation on people and what they can do and things like that. But that's just me, and that's not getting into politics. It's just how I feel. Like, I want to be able to live my life and live it freely, but then at the same time, we have to give companies the same right? You got to be like, all right, you can do what you want. It's kind of a catch-22. If you have a right, they have a right, that type of thing. But I still think, you know, if you're going to get rid of my data, then at least pay me. Like, I don't care if it's 10 cents a sale. Like, at least give me some Facebook credit for all the data you sold on me.
Data commissions, that could be an interesting thing to see,
you know,
in the
like,
future.
give me something. If you sold my data, give me 10 cents.
You know, in a sense, we are getting paid though, because the old adage, and I'm sure both of you guys have heard,
nothing
you know,
in life is free.
Well, there's that, but if you're not paying for it, you
are the product.
You are the product, exactly. You know, it's like Facebook is already giving you credit. Why? To access to the platform, basically. Yep. You know, and that's that devil's bargain that we've all made. You know, with Twitter and LinkedIn and so forth.
Yeah,
you know, there's no incentive for them to pay us, basically, because that's fine. Brian can go away. I've got a million other Brians that I can pull from.
Yep. And
I think we might have a better chance of. Yeah.
Go ahead, Brett.
Go ahead, Brett.
I was going to say, I think we might have, if this current generation is going to be too hard to convince, we might still have hope in the next generation, which is Generation Alpha. So you both have kids.
Yeah.
So I know a lot of people have kids. My parents have kids, obviously.
I would hope so, Brett. I would hope so.
Maybe you're adopted.
Like my generation, we grew up like half connected to devices. When I see like my baby sister or my baby brother, that they're inseparable from iPads. Like, we've had the singularity. Humans are inseparable from machines at this point, and it's going to be, if we don't fix that, the generation that's coming up, then it's going to be even worse for them. Like, if we're worried about it for us, imagine what it's going to be like for them, that they can't live without the technology that they've grown up with.
And to that point, I tried for a long time to keep things away from my younger kids. You know, I've got 5 boys. All right, my oldest is 12. So I've tried to keep things away from the younger ones, but because of the older ones, like it just becomes a fight of, this is the other. So then I was like, and I'll be the first one to admit, I went out and I bought an iPad Pro and I was like, you're going to leave this on the kitchen table and use it only for learning. And I did. I put only learning games on there initially. And that lasted maybe a month or two.
Yeah,
before there was arguments between the two youngest, and then my 7-year-old was like, hey, you can put this game and this game and this game on here, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah.
We're gonna fight, boy. We're gonna fight. So yeah, I did, but I try to regulate it, right? So I'm that type of parent that I can regulate a lot of things because I'm in security, because I know networking, because I know wireless routers, and I know how to do privacy controls, and I know how to block different sites and different keywords and all that other stuff. So I'm a little bit different in that I know how to regulate what my kids are doing, and I do that. But there's a lot of parents out there that let technology parent their kids. And so they have this social media, whether it's Snapchat or TikTok or whatever the case may be, and that's their parent at that point. YouTube even. I can't tell you the arguments I've had with my son because of videos he's watched on YouTube, but they look at it and they're like,
that was my childhood.
And you're like, what are you doing? Nothing.
Yeah.
And you're like, dude, like, lift your face and speak to me. Like, I get mad, and people talk about screen time. And my sister, I ain't gonna lie, my sister's really good about screen time. I think her kids maybe get an hour on electronics. I'm really bad as a techie because I love technology. I love phones, iPads, tablets, computers, you name it. I mean, I built my son's first computer. That's just how I am.
But you also have to do the parent side, right? The parent
right.
Side, besides the techie side.
Yeah, so I try to like regulate myself, but it's hard because I am the type of person I'm like, I'll just buy the newest iPad. I don't care, whatever. Like, I'll throw away the money. Sure, here you go. Have fun. It's cool. Yeah. And then they don't use it for 2 weeks and it becomes mine anyways.
Key takeaway is raise your effing kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've locked down screen time. My wife and I, we were very aggressive approach. My kids are 5 and 7, boy and girl. And, of course, grandma gave them iPads last year as for Christmas presents, and I'm like, why do you hate me? I love my mother-in-law, but they didn't exactly need iPads on their own necessarily.
Yeah.
But we've managed it well. No screen time during school week. Only weekends, and they have to earn 30 minutes at a time. But we're also cognitive. I've locked down the iPads, and I wish the controls were a little bit more user friendly on there.
So do I.
Yeah, I agree.
Appropriately.
My son, because if you have anything, what sucks about the iPad is if you have anything on there, because my kids know how to charge them and uncharge them, right? My younger two. So they know how to plug them in and charge them and uncharge them. Now my youngest one will come to me and be like, Daddy, help. And I just pray he does that prior to him locking the iPad out for 15 minutes.
Oh.
Because I have PIN codes, I have locks on it. That way they have to come. And if I decide they are allowed the iPad, then okay, I'll unlock it. Unfortunately, my 5-year-old,
I think my opinion
knows the PIN. So he just goes, do. I'm in. Do. And I'm like, son of a mother.
Well, for one thing, never use PIN codes. And I'm even iffy on Touch ID. Use a long alphanumeric passcode. Like when I was 10, I figured out the PIN on my iPod. So it's not that hard for kids to figure it out, especially when you keep going to your parents like, hey, I locked myself out. Well, you got those, which passwords doesn't work now.
Yeah.
So
I did it just because,
long alphanumeric.
Look, man, I'm gonna look. I don't know if she's sleeping or not. Probably not. My wife is not tech savvy. If I put a long alphanumeric password on that,
I'm not saying do it from BitLocker.
Murdered.
Yeah.
I'm not saying use like a random generated password. I'm saying like use something that you can both remember, even if it's like 10 characters. That's fine. Like even if it's well, not that unsecure, like your mother's maiden name or something. Like
I could into sorry.
Something that has a larger key space, right? Instead of just 10,000 possible combinations with a pin code.
Yeah.
You can easily
I
write
foresee
like Windows does that now, so that's weird.
Rotating the passwords for the Wi-Fi. I foresee something like that happening when they get a little older.
Wi-Fi, yeah.
I schedule it. No, they can't get into mine. I schedule that so that at bedtime, Wi-Fi is gone. Your internet is gone. Go ahead and try.
Well, that's the next thing I'm going to do. Yeah, when they get older, then yes. Right now, it's like, that's not an issue. But I will have to do that definitely with my network.
I had my oldest. I can't tell you how many times I forgot to kill the schedule on the weekend, or not the weekend, like days off. So they'd have a day off of school, so I'd let them stay up an hour later, and they'd be like, I'm playing this game, or he'd be in the middle of playing a game, and I had it scheduled to shut off at like, I don't know, 8 or 9 or something like that, and all of a sudden he'd come upstairs, Dad, what? Oh, whoops, were you playing a game? Yes, you should have told me. You know your schedule. You should have told me.
Yeah.
So you lost your R6 match.
Right. So you lost Fortnite. I'm sorry. You lost your match. What are you gonna do? It's a game.
You'll have another one.
Deal with it.
It doesn't matter. It's Fortnite anyways.
I think I'm a little bit maybe different than a lot of the techies out there. Is when I come home, I look at the screens all day. I want to try to minimize my screen time because young kids are seeing me. They're seeing me on my phone, catching up on news that I didn't in the week, during the workday. Then I'm not paying attention to them, and they're gonna get the same. They're gonna get that impression. Oh, Dad doesn't care, or Mom doesn't care. So to that end, I really try to make a conscious effort to not look at the screens on the phone.
And I hear that because I've made that attempt in the past, especially because up until today, we're not gonna get into that. Working full time, plus now I'm doing Cyber Warrior Studios and Security Happy Hour and all the other videos I've been doing in marketing and all this other stuff. I'm behind my computer screen from like 5:30 in the morning until almost midnight most nights. So it gets rough, and my wife deals with it. But even before that, I've always been a big proponent of, if I get an email, if I get a message, if I get an alert, I'm on my phone. And then on top of that, the games on your phone. Like when I first got my iPhone, I think my newest one, it might have been the one before that, I was like, I'm not going to put any games on here. I want no distractions. I just want work. Like, it's just going to be for business, for work, this, that, the other. And inevitably you get bored and you're like, oh, let's put this game on here. And it starts to become addicting, and you start doing it more often. And so I see that a lot. And I see that in my kids. I mean, I'll be honest. The first time my oldest swore, ever said a swear word, was because I was playing Angry Birds. And when I would play Angry Birds, I'd say, damn, if I screwed up. And so he got on either my phone or my wife's or my mother-in-law's, I don't know which. He was on one of them, and he was playing Angry Birds, and all you hear is, damn. And he's like 2 years old, and you're like, what are you doing? He was playing Angry Birds and repeating what his father said. So I see
the first
that.
time my parents ever heard me swear, that was a different circumstance. That was back when YouTube was still very new, and I discovered Angry Video Game Nerd.
Right? I think there's a difference when they're younger.
You're laughing. You know what exactly I'm talking about.
And then when they're older, and like if you hear me in front of a video game, especially like football, like if I'm playing Madden or like Final Fantasy, those are really the only two games I ever really enjoy besides Zelda, and Super Mario. But if you hear me in front of video games, my filter's gone, out the door. And my kids have learned.
Even when you get on Discord.
Well, that's a whole different ballgame. I'm not perfect. I have this ability when I need to, only when I need to flip the switch and be professional. And then when I'm just on Discord or something like that, it's gone. Like, filter's gone. I'm gonna look. I have a mouth like a sailor, as the term goes. Sometimes worse than a sailor. And I was a soldier. So guess what? That filter's out the window. And I'm really bad about it.
You say words that would normally make you look like a very bad person.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff that is not professional in the slightest. Numerous F-bombs are dropped.
Dude, that's said on a regular basis in cybersecurity. I thought that's like the primary word we use.
That's the rite of passage right there.
It is, and I use that as an indicator of sorts for how I feel about my current job. I've had contracting jobs over the years. I've been a Fed, I've been in active duty, and it's like if I'm cursing and ranting to my wife when I get home, or now I work from home, so when I go downstairs from the office and I come down and talk to her, if I'm ranting about anything that's not work related, then I'm enjoying my work, basically. I'm not ranting about the work itself or the coworkers.
Yep. Well, that's the big thing.
I'm enjoying it.
That's the big thing.
Or the finance at school.
So before we leave, on that note, because it's been over an hour. Wow. On that note, what I will say is this. Enjoy your job. Look, guys, and everybody out there who's watching, anybody new to cybersecurity, anybody new to IT, programming, whatever the case may be, yes, it gets frustrating. Yes, it gets stressful. But you should never have to take that home with you. All right? So if you find you are worse at home because of the way your work is going and you can't manage that stress, I'm going to be honest with you, find yourself a new job. And I'm not saying a new career field, maybe just a new company, maybe just a new area, but find yourself something new. Because if you are taking your problems out on your family, whether that's a wife, a girlfriend, a parent, a brother, a sister, it doesn't matter what it is. If you are taking your problems from work out on people at home, take it from somebody who has learned the hard way, you do not want to do that. And you have to find a different avenue, and you have to find something new. Because your work should not follow you home. Your home life is your home life. Your work life is your work life. Find a work-life balance and find your happiness. Because that's truly what matters, is we should be happy and we should be able to pursue happiness. So saying that, shout out to Brett Broadhurst. Shout out to Brian Thompson. Look, guys, it's been a great night. I loved having you on here. Go ahead, everybody watching, put your comments down below. Leave them. And hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and that little alarm bell so you know anytime I post a new video. And guess what? I do go live on occasion. Definitely at least once a month. So you will be notified anytime I go live as well. And hey, guess what? I've got new merch coming. All right, I've got a beanie. I've got a neck gaiter. I'm probably going to order a t-shirt next week. We'll see. But all that stuff is on my website, cyberwarriorstudios.com. Go ahead, if you want to support me, patreon.com/cyberwarriorstudios. And I will catch you all next time on Security Happy Hour.